Fox, Marvin Devine, Huber, Axel, and you know how we do. Yeah, I got the juice, yeah, I got the juice. Whip game cool, make them look like cool. Always play cool, that's the biggest rule. Forget what they doing, keep on doing. I've been making loot since like 22. Ask me how I made it right here in the booth. I'm always pursued cause of what I pursue. That's greatness, yeah, I gotta make it, I got things to lose. Boy, wanna get in my crew, but you can't get in my crew. Me, XL, and Huber, way too fireable. When this joint drop, better call the troops. And when you hear the drop, better raise the roof. Better raise the roof. You already know what happens when we link up. Let's go.
All these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, we have something extra special for you. There are some people in life that you come across and you know they're special the minute you meet them. There are even fewer kidney advocates that are special from jump, that you know they are completely unique. Our guest tonight, the great Monica Fox, is with us. She is such a kidney organ transplant advocate. Monica was a medical assistant for 25 years when kidney failure struck in 2013. It was very, very serious, and we almost lost her. But fortunately for us, she recovered. She had a kidney transplant in 2016, And since that time of her turnaround, she has dedicated herself to advocating for all of us that are kidney and organ patients. It is estimated that she has put in over 8,000 hours of service to this cause. Just a partial list of her activities. She is the current Director of Outreach and Government Relations for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. She's serving on the advisory committee for the Gift of Hope Organ, Eye, and Tissue Donor Network. She is a member of the NKF's Kidney Advocacy Committee, and as you know, those are the people that speak to your national and your state members of Congress. She is part of the NKF's peer mentoring program. She's a member of the South Suburban Chicago chapter of Links, Inc., and currently serves as the national co-chair of Linkage to Life, focusing on education concerning organ, eye, tissue, and bone marrow transplant. She's an associate member of the South Suburban Chicago chapter of Jack and Jill of America. She is the current host of the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois' podcast, The Journey Continues. I got another one on here that's got a piece of crystal or two at home. Her awards include the Gift of Life of Hope Life-Saving Partners Award, the Robert Felter Memorial Award from the End-Stage Renal Disease Network number 10, the Phenomenal Woman Award from the Zeta chapter of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority, the CareTX Kidney Transplant Champion Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the great Monica Fox to the show. Hey, Miss Monica, how are you?
Hey, Uncle Jim, I'm great. Thank you so much. I am humbled by your introduction, but I feel like I'm at a party. This is fancy what you got going on here, Jim. You are too much.
Well, Steve Belter is so awesome. His network is just so awesome. I'm just real happy to be with him. So let's get right into it, shall we?
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what your younger life was like.
Oh, sure. So I'm here in the south suburbs of Chicago. I live in Flossmoor, Illinois. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, born and raised. And I've always been, my mother always taught me to whom much is given, much is expected. And so my parents gave me everything they could. And in return, we did a lot of community service and work to support others. So that's kind of how I was raised. I went to college at DePaul University, graduated from there, and I married and had a daughter. She's now 28, since divorced, but I have a beautiful 4-month-old grandson. He is the joy of our lives. He makes everybody happy. And it's just, I'm sure we'll get into my kidney journey, but my kidney journey changed the course of my life for the better. And I always say that God had a plan. And, in the middle of the night in the ICU, when all I could do was look at the ceiling, I said, God, you saved me for a reason. And when I figure that out, I'm going to commit to it. And when I figured out that he wanted me to be committed to the kidney community, that's what I've been doing ever since then.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your work history, Monica.
Sure. So when I graduated from college, I started working in the field of orthotics and prosthetics because my father is the first Black certified orthotist and prosthetist in the state of Illinois. So all of my life, he had worked as an orthotist and prosthetist, taking care of people on the south side of Chicago. Primarily, many of his patients had diabetes and lost their limbs due to diabetes. And so I grew up watching this. Sorry, here we are at home and the dog's barking. I grew up, watching my father do this work, and it was good work. I saw him restore people's ability to walk, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I went to work for him. And then when I got married, my husband at the time was doing his residency training in Boston. So I moved out there, and I went to work for a regional orthotic and prosthetic company. They had offices all up and down the East Coast. And so I worked for them, and I managed their centralized billing department. I actually helped to develop their centralized billing department and for their 10 offices in the New England region, and did insurance contracting and the like for them. So after, moving back here to Chicago, after 12 years out there on the East Coast in Boston and Philadelphia is where my daughter was born. Came on back home to Chicago and went back to actually run my father's business. And it was there where I was working and retired from suddenly when kidney disease hit me.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's go back to November of 2013, Franciscan Health in Olympia Fields. Tell us how you first learned you had kidney disease. What happened? How serious was it?
I had been feeling kind of sick, really tired. Had a cough, which seemed like sinus infections, which I had all my life. Felt like postnasal drip, but it wasn't clearing, and so went to the doctor, convinced them that I had a sinus infection, told me to drink lots of fluid, gave me some antibiotics, and went on home. Rested for over a week and wasn't getting any better. And so my family began to insist that I needed to check further. And on the day that I went to the emergency room, I actually had gone to work that morning, but really didn't have enough energy to get from my desk to the bathroom. And so I said, I think it's time for me to go get checked out. But actually, I left work saying I was going home, and behind the scenes, my family was calling around to each other and saying, she's got to go to the hospital. Something's seriously wrong. And so I went. My sister actually drove me there. Well, she was waiting for me in the driveway as I drove home from work, and with her car running. And she said, I'm going to take you to the hospital. And I said, I can't get out. You have to get in with me. I'm too tired. I can't get out of the driver's seat. And so she got in with me, and I drove to the hospital, just 5 minutes from the house. Most people say, well, she really loves you. She got in the car with you when you were sick. And literally, I pulled up to the emergency room. She got out, put me in a wheelchair, pushed me into registration. I did my own registration, and that's the last thing I recall until she told me, they said your kidneys are failing, and your kidneys have failed, and you have a huge fight ahead of you. What are you going to do? And I said, I have to fight. Olivia's in college, and she needs me. I have to fight. And she said, okay. And she began to advocate for me. She began, to be my medical proxy and talk with the doctors about what needed to happen. I needed to go immediately into an induced coma in order to stabilize my heart function, because my heart rate was high and my blood pressure was low. And they had to get my heart rate stabilized before they could do anything else. And so, she began to work with the doctors and approve the care that they were recommending for me, because I couldn't speak for myself. I was out of it at this point. And 4 days later, I woke up and I had my first dialysis treatment, and they were telling me that my daughter was on her way home from college. My mother had gone to the airport to pick her up. And I said, wow, something is drastically wrong. If Olivia's coming home from college and it's not a holiday, something is wrong. What's going on? And I didn't really even know at that point what was happening with me medically.
Okay. I'm told there were continuing complications after your admission. 3 weeks in the ICU, time in the telemetry unit, muscle atrophy. I had to learn to walk
Yes.
all over again. Did I miss anything, Monica?
Yeah. No, that I also had a perforated duodenum that they had to repair, so I had to go into an emergency surgery on a Friday night in the midst of all of this. And my thyroid was out of whack, so they weren't sure what happened first, what started the whole thing. They don't know if it was the thyroid or the cardiac or the kidney or what, but yeah, it was an ugly scene. And my daughter, when she came home from college, she told all her professors her mother was sick. She had to go home. She came home with all her studies, and she sat in the ICU with her laptop and her books, and she took copious notes as 6 teams of doctors paraded through my room on a daily basis. She sat there all day, keeping up with her schoolwork, but also keeping up with notes of all of what was going on with my health care and keeping my family informed while they, went about other responsibilities and came back as they could. So I don't know what I would do without my family, such amazing family support that I had through all this. That was, between that and our family faith, that's what helped to survive all that.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about being on dialysis. How long were you on dialysis? What modality did you use? Where did you take it if it was in center? Challenges.
Yeah, so dialysis was challenging for many reasons. I was on in-center hemodialysis. So in the ICU, they started me on hemodialysis with a catheter. I eventually got a fistula, and I went to a rehab center because I couldn't walk. So when I left the hospital, I didn't want to go home because I couldn't even get myself to the toilet. And I didn't want to be a burden on my family in that way. So I chose to go to a rehab center, and this rehab center had physical therapy and also dialysis in the building, because now this is December and going into January. And so I did dialysis in the nursing home and did physical therapy. They told me I would do physical therapy 3 times a week and I should get out of there in 3 months. And I was like, I can't get out. I can't stay here for 3 months. So the therapists were kind enough to let me come as much as I want, and I literally went 3 times a day, and I got out of there in 3 weeks because my goal was to be able to stand and walk. I left there, I was able to walk with a rollator walker. I couldn't walk 100 feet without assistance, but I could walk with a rollator walker, and I could get myself to the toilet and back and forth. So I knew I could go home at that point.
Okay.
But so then I went to outpatient dialysis, and that's where the education began. The technicians at dialysis really started me on. They taught me that I needed to know what was going on with my health care. They taught me that I had to be a partner with them in the dialysis center. Now, I don't know if I was just open to this, because I really don't feel like everybody has that understanding in that's on dialysis. But that was clear to me from the very beginning, that I had to take control and take power over my treatment. Because when you're on dialysis, you might have a different technician every day. And sometimes they're new. Sometimes they don't read your notes good. Sometimes the notes aren't very good. It just became clear that I had to know what was happening. And so that's what I did. I committed myself to becoming an expert on dialysis because this was my lifeline.
Okay. My notes tell me that you were on dialysis for a period of 3 years. Is that correct?
3 years, and it was almost 3 years to the day. So my journey, my kidney journey began November 13th, 2013, and I got my transplant, my kidney transplant, November 23rd, 2016.
Okay.
So almost 3 years to the day.
I know that during this period of time, you made a commitment to become an advocate for all of us kidney patients. Can you talk about why you did that? Why did you make such a commitment? What motivated you to do it?
So I believed that God put me on this journey for a reason. And, that was a message that I heard loud and clear over the machines in the ICU in the middle of the night. And I prayed about it and I prayed about it. And I said, God, please reveal to me what it is that you would have me to do. And so while I was on dialysis and I was making it my business to learn everything that I could learn, and, you look around and you see and you hear what is going on with other people. And I started advocating right there in the dialysis center. And then that just turned into the need to do more. And I also got involved with Gift of Hope, especially once I learned that the wait in Illinois is 5 to 7 years for a deceased donor kidney. I knew I had to help to do something about that. I didn't know what I could do, but I reached out to Gift of Hope and I asked what I can do. And they connected me with their community, with their community outreach department, and I became an ambassador with them and really took to heart educating the community about the need to be a registered organ donor, because African Americans, I learned, were the most in need but the least likely to give. And so I knew I had to help. I had to try to do something about that. So I really just rolled up my sleeves and I went to work with Gift of Hope advocating for organ donation. And that really kept my mind going. It really made me feel like I had value while I was on dialysis, and like I wasn't going to, my brain wasn't going to turn to mush while I went through this life-saving treatment.
Okay.
And that I wasn't working.
You mentioned that while you were on dialysis, you were taking certain steps to advocate. You were also taking certain steps to shorten your wait for a kidney
Absolutely.
transplant. Can you tell us the things that you did to try and find a donor?
Sure. So, much to my dismay, when I went to get registered, when I went to get evaluated for transplant, that's when I learned that the wait in Illinois was 5 to 7 years for a deceased donor transplant. And they said most people don't survive for 5 years on dialysis. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this situation? And so they said, you need to share your story. There are people out here who might be willing to help you. That was counterintuitive because in my family, we don't really share our personal medical business publicly. In fact, when I was in the ICU and I couldn't speak for myself, my family was not sharing with my friends what was going on with me health-wise, because it wasn't their business to share, and we just don't do that. So I wondered, how will my mother see this? If my grandmother was alive, what would she think about me sharing this? But luckily, because I was advocating with Gift of Hope, they taught me how to share my story. The thought of asking someone to give me a kidney was overwhelming too, but you don't have to necessarily ask someone to give you a kidney. If you share your story and you say what you need and they want to help you, they will help you. So I shared my story all over Facebook. Gift of Hope made a video they made me the face of waiting, and they created a video, and I was able to share that video, and many people came forward to be tested for me. And, for reasons unknown, it didn't work out. But the miracle of my journey was that I received a directed deceased donor kidney. So because I had shared my story, one of my friends who had come forward and wasn't able to be my donor, um, when her family friend reached out and said, my uncle's been in a tragic accident and we're preparing to donate his organs, he's able to donate a liver and kidneys, and we want to know who's going to receive his organs. And she thought of me at that time. And she called me up early on a Monday morning and asked me if I was still waiting. And I said yes. And she told me the story of her friend, exactly what her friend had told her. And she asked, can I give them your name and number? And I said yes. And she gave them my name and number. And the next call I got, an hour or so later, was from the organ procurement organization in Tennessee, which is where the accident had occurred. And they asked for my transplant center information. And I shared that information with them, and the wheels got turning, and they sent my blood serum from Gift of Hope down there, and they did the cross match, and he was a blood type match, and my antibodies didn't react to his, and he was a suitable match. And the most beautiful part, his legal next of kin was his daughter. And his daughter was the same age as my daughter, Olivia, is the same age as my daughter, Olivia. And she was the one who called me and said to me that her father had been tested and they had found that he was a suitable match for me. And she was getting ready to sign the paperwork for his kidney to be sent to me. She was 25 years old at the time. I told her, you are the strongest young woman that I have ever known in my life. That took such strength to do that. At the most difficult time of her life, for her to stop and save my life, there's just no words that can express my gratitude for that gift.
Okay. Let's make sure we get the cast of characters right, Monica. The friend of yours that made the referral, that's Teresa Moore Carity.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
The man, the 52-year-old man from Memphis, his name was?
Milton Powell. That's my hero.
Okay. The daughter, the 24-year-old daughter that made sure all this happened, her name is Marquita
Powell. Yes.
And your daughter's name again is Olivia?
My daughter is Olivia Fox. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're back on Tuesday, Thanksgiving week, 2016. We're at the University of Illinois Hospital. Mm-hmm. Tell me what happened.
So they called me at about 6:00 and said the kidney has just been put on a plane and is on its way here. We need you to get to the hospital. And so my daughter drove me immediately to UI Health. They took me right in and started to work me up for surgery. And I went to the OR at about 11:30 that night. And I woke up the next morning, came out of surgery, I think maybe 5 a.m. Olivia stayed there overnight by herself because my sister was here with her son. And then she left and my aunt came to relieve her. And they finally woke me up. They keep you intubated post-transplant. And once they removed the tube and I woke up, I opened my eyes, I felt 200% better instantly. I mean, it was like I call it a miracle because it truly felt like a miracle. And I felt like I could just get up and run laps around the hospital. It was just totally amazing.
Excellent. What a great transplant story, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about your kidney advocacy since the time of your transplant. By the way, how long have you been transplanted now? You were transplanted in 2016. This is 2021.
2016 is gonna be 5 years in November.
Happy
So
Thanksgiving.
4.5 years. Yeah, Thanksgiving is a wonderful time of the year.
All right, let's talk about your advocacy a little bit. Tell us about kidney kits. What's that all about?
Oh, so kidney kits that's something that I started while I was on dialysis. So I'm a Mary Kay beauty consultant.
Shameless
Um,
plug.
Shameless plug. But when I was on dialysis before I learned about Mary Kay Cosmetics, my skin was really dry and just ugly. And I mean we suffer with dry skin because your kidney's not functioning right and um your toxins are out of whack. So I learned about Mary Kay and I started to use the products and it really made a difference in my life. So I wanted to give back. Once I got my transplant, I wanted to do something for others. And so my daughter and I got together and we decided to put together kidney kits. So I sent out an email to all my friends and family and I asked them if they wanted to purchase kits that would be given to people on dialysis. And those kits would contain nourishing products for men or women that would help with their skincare. And so we put together these kits and we usually gave them out at Christmas time. And if it wasn't Christmas time, it might be Valentine's Day. But at Christmas time, we put on our little Santa hats and we go to the dialysis center bearing gifts and we would wrap them up real nice. And we'd give them to the patients and they were always very well received. And then I was able to connect with my Jack and Jill sisters to do community service projects. They love the idea, so together we put together money and put together kits and went together to the dialysis center and distributed these. And so it just became something that really felt like a wonderful thing to do. Because I always say people are always putting together cancer kits, but they don't think about people on dialysis. I understand people on cancer, they go through chemo and all of that, but people who are going through dialysis treatments, they need love too, love and attention. And so that's what we do. We give not only the kits, but the kits are given with love.
Okay, my good friend Lisa Baxter's asking, do you have a flyer or a website? How can we get people that want to get in touch with you at Mary Kay? How can we reach you?
Sure, I do have a website and it's www.marykay.com/Monica Fox 99.
All right.
My daughter might be watching, and if so, she could put it in the chat for me.
Or stick it in the comments to the broadcast. That's where people will see it.
Okay.
Let's talk about your advocacy with the Gift of Hope. I know you've done videos for them and lots of other things.
Right.
Can you tell us about that?
I just did a lot of advocacy with Gift of Hope. I did educational tables at health fairs and churches and spoke at churches. Gift of Hope also gave me the opportunity to meet my donor family in person. They flew them in from Memphis, and they also had extended family here in Chicago. And we came together at a mega church in Chicago where we shared the story of organ donation. We celebrated. It was called a celebration of donation. And I was able to share my story. And then I was able to greet and hug Milton's whole family, his mother, his daughter, his nieces, his nephews, his siblings, his aunts and uncles. It was just a beautiful day. So I gave a lot to Gift of Hope. I joked all the time with the former CEO, Kevin Smunt, and I'd say, I am your hardest working employee that you don't pay. But Gift of Hope gave a lot back to me. My daughter works for Gift of Hope now. She is a community outreach specialist for them. So she continues my legacy of raising awareness about organ and tissue donation. And that's what she does for a living now. And again, they created that video, which I think saved my life. The fact that I had that video and I was able to share it. I also used to share, information about dialysis while I was, I would do lives when I was on dialysis, or I would post pictures and talk about some of the difficulties of it. And all of that helped, to raise awareness and for people to understand what I was going through. So Gift of Hope is a wonderful organization. And my work with them was really life-changing. It really helped to develop me into the person that I am today.
Excellent. Let's talk about CAC. Let's talk about your experiences with the National Kidney Foundation's Kidney Advocacy Committee and advocating to our national members of Congress.
Yes. Well, when I got my transplant and I started looking online for, just trying to figure out what can I do, where can I get involved? When I ran across the information about the Kidney Advocacy Committee, I'm like, that's the place for me. I want to talk to these legislators. I want to make a difference. I want to help make a change. And so I got involved and I was invited to come to the Kidney Patient Summit. That's where we first met. It was, I think you might have been one of the first people I met there. And it was just so empowering to go and share your story with these legislators or their aides, and they really listen. And then to see, policies become law that you've worked on, it's really just wonderful. And so the beauty of the miracle of that story was that the then program director from NKFI was there along with one of the program associates. And of course, because we were from Illinois, we were together in a group and we became friends. And that's basically how I came to work for NKFI. So
NKFI, National Kidney Foundation of Illinois.
That's right. And so we talked, we worked together through that Kidney Patient Summit. And when it was over, I said to her, my mission aligns with the mission of NKFI. And I think you should hire me, because I was going to start my own organization, but then I'd compete with you. So you should just hire me. And that would make everything much easier. And couple of months later, she called me up and said, "Were you serious? Are you really interested?" And I said, yes. And I took an entry-level position. I'm like, all I got to do is get my foot in the door and I can work my way up to where I need to be. And so I started off as an outreach associate. It was a position that hadn't existed before. But, in our time together, I had convinced her that they needed somebody. They needed some boots on the ground to get out and tell people about the foundation, about what they had to do. We do lots of great programming, but I hadn't been aware of it while I was on dialysis. So they were missing a huge population of the people that needed to know about their programs and everything. And she agreed with me. That position was created. And from there, I've grown into my current position.
Excellent. Excellent. Talk to us a little bit about being the national co-chair of the Linkages of Life, the educational programs, et cetera.
Sure. So the Links is an international organization of women, primarily African American women, and that do philanthropic work and community service work in our respective communities. So there are over 200 chapters around the country, and in London, in the Bahamas, and a few other places internationally. And within our service area, so I'm in the South Suburban area, and we work to do what is needed to make our community better, to help reduce disparities of whatever sort in our areas. And so Linkages to Life is one of our committees. is the signature committee of our national organization that focuses on organ, eye, and tissue donation and bone marrow donation. And I'm one of the co-chairs. And so we work together with Donate Life America to raise awareness about organ and tissue donation. So it really is an honor to have been appointed by our national president to that committee, to be a co-chair of that committee.
Excellent. Excellent. I don't want people to think you're just a talker. You're also a kidney writer. You wrote an article for the Journal of the Association, American Association of Nephrologists. Can you talk about the CJSN article, please?
Sure. So, I mean, there is a huge disparity for transplant for African American people. We won't even get into the whole EGFR thing and how there's a different measure for Blacks than others, which starts us off at a disadvantage. But there are other things like social determinants of health that make it difficult for certain people to access transplant. So I felt like it was important to speak to that, and it was an honor to be able to write that article and have it published, because we've got a long way to go. But as long as there remains a conversation and that people are thinking about it and working towards making a difference, then that's what matters.
Talk to us a little bit about your experience with the transplant games in 2018 with your friend Vince Shavers.
Oh yes, so Vince and I when I learned about the Transplant Games of America, and there are all kinds. It's like the Olympics for people with transplants, and there are all kinds of different competitions that you can participate in. There's swimming, that wasn't really my thing. There's track and field, that wasn't really my thing, and then there's like poker and pickleball and there's all kind of various things. I'm like, what can I do? And then I saw there was ballroom dancing. So ballroom dancing, that's perfect. But I got to find a partner. So I was able to convince Vince to be my partner, and we found a ballroom dance studio that was willing to give us lessons and choreograph a dance for us out in Naperville. And we went for lessons for about a month. I think we had a total of 8 lessons, and we learned a routine, and we went to the games and we did this routine, and we won a bronze medal. So it was really fun. It was really fun. And Vince is just a hoot. He is such a great guy. So we had a lot of fun doing it. It was great exercise, which is the point of the Transplant Games of America, to encourage transplant recipients to live a healthy, active, and fun life. So I did ballroom dancing, and I won a bronze medal, and I did racquetball, and I won a silver medal. And then I did the 5K, and in the 5K, everybody wins.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about your experiences now with the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois as the Director of Outreach and Government Relations. Let's start with Robin Roberts and Good Morning America.
Oh yeah, that was fun. So I went to New York City for training for a new program, which is a fantastic program that we offer. It's called Take Charge of Your Kidney Health. It's an 8-week program that, and it's a small group setting, not more than 15 people. And we go through several different modules of how to take charge of your health and how to offset all the issues that go along with having a chronic illness. And so it's really impactful. Well, we had to go to New York to the NKF national office in order to be trained to facilitate this program. And so Austin Lee was also one of the people there getting trained. He came from their DC office. There were about 4 different offices from around the country that came together in DC, in New York, to be trained. And so early one day during our session, I said, I really want to go to Good Morning America. So I'm going to get up early tomorrow morning and go to Good Morning America. Who wants to go with me? And Austin said, I'll go with you. And so the next morning we got up early. We walked up to Times Square and we stood outside the windows. And, you know how they show people standing outside the windows. Well, suddenly a security guard came over and he struck up a conversation with us. And the next thing I know, he kind of radios in, and then somebody inside is talking back to him, and then he says, "You two come with me." And Robin was kind of looking out, and she had smiled at us and we had smiled at her, and he took us in. And so we went in and we met Robin, and she was so kind, and we shared with her that we were transplant recipients, and Austin shared his story, and she was just really taken with our stories, and she's just a kind and gracious woman. And so it was just really fun to meet her and be able to take pictures, and it was just a great day.
I heard a story, and I thought I saw some posts on this that you made, something to the effect of you went down to Springfield to testify in front of some committee down there about some legislation. And the story that I heard is when they found out you were there, they passed the legislation. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So it pays to have friends. I happen to have a friend who is a senator, and he happened to be the head of the Senate Insurance Committee. The Senate Insurance Committee. And that was the committee that our legislation was coming before. And I was supposed to testify in front of him. And so in advance of going to Springfield, I called him up to have a conversation about it. And he had been given some misinformation by the senator who introduced the legislation. She hadn't told him the truth about it. And so when I told him the truth about the legislation and how the impact that it would have on kidney patients, and particularly those that live within his community, and he trusted me, and he knew I didn't have a reason to lie to him. And he actually had put his name as a co-sponsor on this bill, which was why I immediately called him up. When he went on as a co-sponsor, I called him up to say, hey, I don't think you understand what this is all about. And that's what happens with a lot of legislation. You know, if legislators don't understand the whole truth of the situation, they might vote in a way that's detrimental to us kidney patients. So just having that personal conversation with him shut that legislation down. It didn't even come up for a vote.
That was it. Okay.
In the insurance committee, and so it failed.
And we wanted that to fail.
We wanted it to fail.
Very good. Very good. Monica,
we were opposed to that.
The whole Congress just rolls over, baby. Yeah.
That was a lucky day.
Let's talk about the NKFI's new podcast, The Journey Continues, that you are running. Talk a little bit about your experiences with that. I think you've done about 4 or 5 of those now.
Oh, no, we have. I actually just recorded the 24th episode. So we have 24 episodes available on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you can get podcasts, and also on our NKFI YouTube page. But on the Journey Continues podcast, we share powerful stories of organ donation, transplantation, and kidney disease. I've had the opportunity to interview some fantastic people. My first episode, I interviewed a donor mother whose son at 20 years old had been shot to death while sitting on her porch. He went on to be an organ donor and save 8 lives by organ donation and countless lives through tissue donation. And his heart recipient was the other guest. So I interviewed the donor mother and the heart recipient. That was a very humbling story. And the heart recipient is such a beautiful lady. She is a wonderful soul. And they have such a beautiful relationship. It just was a joy to share. I mean, it was, it just was the picture of what organ donation is all about. Because that mother could, when she is missing her son, she said she can just go on Facebook and look up Pam, who's the heart recipient, and see her smile and know that her son lives on and find peace.
Wonderful.
So that's the beauty of organ donation. And so the podcast is, it's a labor of love. It's harder work than I thought. And, from preparing for this show, it's not, you got to do some preliminary work, and there's a certain level of stress because you want it to turn out a certain way. But it's a great vehicle for raising awareness.
Okay. I just wanted to make a statement so our audience understands. This is not all to my friend Monica. My friend has done fundraising events. My friend has done grant writing and administration. My friend has done political campaign administration. So we're talking about a multifaceted advocate here that I'm lucky to have as my friend. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, I think you're pretty fantastic too, Jim, and I'm lucky to be your friend.
Oh, thanks.
And you lead the way, so I watch you and the work that you do, and I admire it. I have to say that.
No, well, thank you, Monica. Much appreciated. Let's talk about some of your honors. Gift of Life-Saving Partners Award.
Yeah,
what was that all about?
Oh my goodness. I did not feel worthy. I felt like I hadn't even done anything, but like I said, Gift of Hope was really, Gift of Hope is the Gift of Hope is my family now. And the work that I was able to do with them was life-changing for me. But it made a difference. We really, people, it was amazing to see the wall come down. When you're in a community, you're out at a health fair or a community event, and they walk up and they see Gift of Hope and they say, "What's Gift of Hope?" We say, "Oh, it's the Organ Donor Network." And people will make a visible face that lets you know they are not interested. But when you strike up that conversation, and at the time I was waiting for a kidney transplant, and I would share my story, you could literally see the wall drop. Or they were so opposed that they didn't even want to speak. And then the wall would drop, and it would be like, "You look just like me, and you are in need of this issue that I am so opposed to." And it made a difference. So being able to do that kind of work in the community and then be honored with an award was just overwhelming. I didn't feel like I was worthy.
Robert Felter Memorial Award from the Renal Network, End-Stage Renal Disease Network, number 10. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I did some volunteer work with them while I was on dialysis, and my social worker submitted me for that award. And the award was given after I got my transplant, so I was gone from dialysis, and I didn't even know I had won that award. So fast forward to when I was working for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and we scheduled a meeting with the executive director of the Renal Network. And in the back and forth of emails, she recognized my name and she sent an email and she said, I have this award in my office that's been here for about 3 years and it has your name on it. Do you think this could be your award? And then she pulled the paperwork and she said, yeah, we couldn't find you. You were gone from your dialysis center. I said, well, yeah, I had gotten my transplant. So she brought the award and gave it to me at Maggiano's restaurant downtown during a meeting that we had scheduled for National Kidney Foundation and the Renal Network.
Oh, wow. According to my notes, you're a phenomenal woman. Tell us about the Phenomenal Woman Award.
Oh, all these awards were just such shocking honors. Honestly, this one was given to me by, so I was nominated for this by a friend of a friend, and we had never even met in person, but she followed me on Facebook, and she is a nurse practitioner. She's a nurse practitioner who takes care of a lot of patients on dialysis, though she's not a dialysis nurse. And she followed me on Facebook because I was friends with her sister. And she said, I inspired her so much and gave her so much information that she was able to use to help her patients that she nominated me for this award. And we had never even met in person. I was totally unknown to this sorority. But she nominated me and they felt me worthy of this honor.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, today, when I was letting people know about the broadcast, I posted a picture of you with a piece of crystal from the NKF CareDx Kidney Transplant Champion Award. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Ms. Champion?
So that was pretty special because that came after we successfully got the immunosuppressive medication bill passed. And we worked tirelessly. I don't have to tell you, Uncle Jim, we worked tirelessly on that legislation. And one of the major things that I was able to accomplish as a part of that campaign was inviting Senator Durbin to come here to Chicago to tour University of Illinois Transplant Center and their robotics center. And he actually sat down at the transplant robot and operated was controlling the operations of the robot. Of course, it wasn't really doing surgery. They just had it doing some inanimate object or something. But just to have him come there and hear from Dr. Benedetti and the whole team at UI Health how important transplant is. And, he's a total advocate anyway. He was the one who had introduced this bill over 10 years ago. But he was so incredibly engaged while we were there. There's a picture of me sharing my story with him, and we're sitting in this big, huge boardroom, and I'm sitting next to him, and I'm sharing my story, and he's looking me eye to eye, like listening to my every word. So just totally amazing. It was just amazing to have that opportunity and experience. And then again, to get an award after the bill was passed. I mean, the bill passing was award enough.
Right. And when you're talking about Senator Durbin, we mean Senator Dick Durbin from the state of Illinois.
Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois. Yes, he is a wonderful individual and such so committed to the kidney community.
I want you to know, Monica, your daughter's been telling on you. She was talking about bowling at the transplant games, but we're not going to mention that.
Oh, don't mention the bowling. I was horrible. I bought a ball and some shoes, and I think I was the worst bowler there.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about COVID-19 and precautions. What precautions are you and your family taking? Vaccinations, whatever.
So we were very careful all through COVID prior to the vaccines becoming available. We stayed in amongst each other. between our three households. So we live 5 minutes away from each other. So we did interact with each other, and we went out a minimal amount. And when we did go out, we used precautions, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, all of that. And then when we were all able to get vaccinated, we did. And so we've all been vaccinated, but we continue to mask and use precautions because we understand that the efficacy of the vaccine is not the same for immunosuppressed patients as it is for others. And so that's at the forefront of our mind.
Okay. Just wanted to point that out. There's a study now that's been released from the New England Journal of Medicine that discusses that exact issue, and they are recommending that those of us on immunosuppressants with solid organ transplants might consider getting a third vaccination as opposed to two with normal people get. So just wanted to throw that out there for the audience for their perusal. All right, last question. Is there anything else you would like to add to the discussion? Did I forget anything? Is there something important to you that you would like to tell us?
Well, you are so extremely thorough. I don't think there's no secrets left. All my secrets have been told. What I didn't tell, my daughter told it in the chat.
Uh-oh.
No, it is just, I feel so honored to be able to work within the kidney community, to be able to help others along the way. I'll say this, there is one thing that I do that we didn't talk about. I'm a transplant coach. So if someone's on dialysis and they want to get a kidney transplant, I will coach them step by step through the process. And I have done that successfully for 4 people within the past 3 years. So from dialysis all the way through transplant successfully. And that is one of my favorite things to do. I really love to see people take that journey from dialysis to transplant. And it can be daunting and it can be lonely. And people have questions along the way, and it's, and so I'm there. I'm there for them to answer those questions, to encourage them, to advocate for themselves, to not just sit and wait, to make the phone calls, to make sure they get the next available appointment for whatever tests they need so that they can progress through the system as quickly as possible and be ready for that life-saving call when it comes. Also helping to encourage them to get a living donor, to share their story with the hopes of getting a living donor. So that's something that's really important that I do.
And you do the NKF peers also, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Haven't really done much with that. I think once I became a staff person, then they call upon me less, or I don't know if maybe people from Illinois aren't really calling. But so we just kind of have our own little informal peers program.
Peers program. Okay. Well, Monica, I appreciate you coming on very much, and thank you for educating us tonight. Much appreciated, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity and your kindness of inviting me on and having this wonderful discussion.
Oh, thank you, Miss Monica. All right, so what's coming up? July 2nd, Dr. Cherub, he's going to talk to us about PKD. July 30th, Dr. Mulgrew, he's going to talk about elderly transplant patients and why he thinks elderly patients make good candidates to donate. August 6th, my friend Shane Blanchard wants to come on. He wants to talk about his need for a kidney, and he wants to bring his kidney transplant guy with him. So we got things coming up. Watch this space. I'll talk to you soon. Good evening.
die. Cody's brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep Wales on my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.